something, aren't we? We're both looking for something.
And you think we'll find it in Bilgewater. And you think we'll find it in Bilgewater.
I think we'll find many things. I think we'll find many things.
Hello everyone, as you can see I'm joined by a very special guest here today. We've got PP God joining us to have a little conversation with you guys, the overseas audience at home. So let's start things off at the very beginning. You've become a little notorious within the overseas crowd because of your name. Where did it all come from, Mr. PP God? Where did it all come from? Alright, so I want to dig a little bit deeper into that origin story as well, because a lot of players across the world have a bit of turbulence going into their professional career. How did you end up becoming a professional gamer? And what was it like telling your family? Were they supportive of the move to become a pro?
上课的时候就学习也不是很好，上课的时候就出去上网，然后就经常出去上网打网吧赛，然后就被网吧老板送去打职业，老板家里人不是很支持。
Alright, now you and Sam D in the bottom lane have obviously got incredible synergy. You've been playing exceptionally well, taking on 2v2 kills against some of the best bot laners in the LPL. How have you guys managed to do it? How have you guys managed to get past the language barrier that exists there?
一开始就交流不是很好，就每天都一直双排，然后就打得会越来越好，也就。
We've got some questions now from social media. Some of the fans around the overseas broadcast want to ask you some questions themselves. So the first one is, do you have any people that you would consider a rival or players that you look up to within the LPL, or vice versa for players internationally? Sweet. Okay, so I want to ask you now about your Weibo profile. When we go on your Weibo profile, your profile picture is currently Eminem. Are you a big fan of Eminem? Where did that all come from? Are you a big fan of Eminem? Where did that all come from?
听他的歌，就在我低谷的时候，他的歌就给我很大的能量。
The next question, obviously you're on V5. And back in spring, you're on V5. It's no secret. Didn't have a great split. It's the worst split in the history of the LPL. What are your expectations joining V5? What are your expectations and how did it feel?
听他说话就没想听他说话就比较有意思，听他说话，事情的话比较有意思，听他说话，暂时还没有。
So final question then, that's all of our community questions. Is there anything you'd like to say to the overseas fans at home that have rallied around you so heavily?
得到大家支持，感觉很荣幸。得到大家支持，就希望自己接下来能打得越来越好。希望自己接下来能不让大家打得越来越好。
Right, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, PP God. Thank you so much for joining us. That's going to be it for us. Make sure you get in touch with him on Weibo. Give him a follow over there. But that's going to be it for the interview. We'll see you guys next time. That's going to be it for the interview. We'll see you guys next time.
Got a feeling nothing is forever. Keep your voice low. The sun is high, but I wish I could bathe in the moonlight. Ooh, this is it now. Come out of the shadow. Make the walls fall. Memory is headed for disaster. Heart is beating so. I hear the words, I see the ghost of laughter in the afterglow.
turn back time? What if I could make the stars align? Could we get across the line into the rest of our lives? Would we have what it takes? How close is make or break? I can see us start to make our great escape. Tonight we will lie awake in the stars, and I'll let you into my heart. Chase the future together forever.
一支队伍的崛起可能要花费几年光景，可联赛的格局洗牌只需要短短几十天。守旧的章法反而成为牵绊自己的枷锁，看似华丽的班底也不一定能收获成
这边
效。
发条是没有用惩戒，直接把龙打下来，正面团战，靠我摧枯拉朽，接着沐浴龙血，远古龙血可以直接摧枯拉朽，毁掉EDG的团战。
胜利的攻势在新的关卡里失去效用，记忆里渐渐模糊的人们重新被聚焦。
后续的一个控制和流人能力，哎，不过他是抢到了抢小龙，
抢自己应该是，哎，他有一个阳伏生气，等到加里奥过来以后，狼行这波的 TP 就没有问题了呀。
年轻的力量令人心生畏惧，陌生的面孔同样值得铭记。
对的，3D 就是一顿 EQ，3D 这里疯狂的走 A， 靠了一个虚弱的汉子跟后续没有气能的，只能向后拉开身位。
就算偶有失利，可胜败总是常事。找到对的方向，就能循着光继续前行。
倒了，后续魔法水剑跟出来，成了17再次倒地，现在是滔博的一个收割局面呀。
群雄并起，诸强攻伐，旧将示威，新人辈出，更替的乱流中做破局的英雄。
Welcome everybody to the LPL. We're in the final day of week number 9, which means we have just 8 days left of the regular split, or at least until we get to our playoffs. That's when it all really kicks off. I'm Munchables. I'm joined by Dagda as always. And Dagda, we're starting the day off with a celebration.
We certainly are. We've got a celebration in store because SMLZ got his 2,000 kill.
So
we got our party popper.
We've got some party poppers. We're going to get some serious value. We bought these way earlier on in the split. SMLZ, 2,000 kills. Got it yesterday. He's up there, I think, third place.
Third place at the moment, yeah.
The third person in the entire league to grab himself that 2,000 kill accolade. So bravo to SMLZ and congratulations.
Yeah, big congratulations to SMLZ. Obviously, very difficult to do. We actually were looking, it was only Uzi and Rookie who have picked up that accolade so far. So joining like those legendary names in that 2,000 kill is absolutely very impressive. And unfortunately, obviously, we weren't able to celebrate as much yesterday. But yeah, damn it, we're going to get used out of these balloons. We're going to get used out of these party poppers. And it's good to see SMLZ picking up what is a massive accolade for his career.
Yeah, fantastic stuff for him. And he got it yesterday. So let's look at the game that he managed to grab that result in. We start off Rogue Warriors LNG. LNG managing to win that one out. EDG beat BLG. And then in that series between IG and OMG, that was when SMLZ grabbed his 2,000th kill.
Yeah, and a very short day yesterday despite the 3 series. 2 O's across the board, and EDG was the impactful, well, massively impactful one there, where they are just about keeping their playoff hopes alive. They're trying to get to that 8th win on the board that maybe can eke them into playoffs, but that still relies on a lot of other results going their way.
And you mentioned them, look at them on the standings. They are in 11th place right there, and they are desperately holding on for hope that they can make it on in. But let's bear in mind, if teams start to get to 9 wins, if WE and FPX get to 9 wins, EDG are out of the running at that stage because they already have those 8 losses. The middle of the table certainly heating up. Up towards the top of the table though, JDG and IG have both already guaranteed themselves top 4.
Which is incredibly impressive from both these squads. And of course, they'll be happy to put themselves into that 4th place spot, both for seeding and also looking at those guaranteed points, those championship points for that gauntlet run, for that Worlds qualifier.
And you can see V5 there as well, just on the cusp of finding themselves in playoffs. We've mentioned JDG, we've mentioned V5, which means it's about time to talk about the series we've got coming up today, because I'm sure a lot of you already know we're starting off
with V5's 5th trial. It's up against JDG to see if they can defeat their trial of intellect. Then later on in the day, we'll jump into E-Stars versus WE, and then Top Esports against RNG as well.
And again, we'll be looking not only at V5 versus JDG, but certainly WE trying to keep their hopes alive, getting to that 9th place win, which could knock out some of those contenders down in the relative pack that is trying to move up into that playoff spot. And Top Esports and RNG trying to battle it out to see if RNG can remove themselves from that middle of the pack and put themselves up very close to that playoff contention.
Yeah, there is only a single team playing today that is out of playoff contention. So all of these games are going to be really, really crucial for seeding, for trying just to make it to playoffs at all. But let's start with V5 against JDG, because this is going to be an insane series. And as I mentioned before, this is the 5th trial of V5. They started off with the trial of everything against Top Esports. They lost out in the trial of strength and the trial of confidence against IG and Suning. They managed to beat WE just a couple of days ago in the trial of coordination. And now the trial of intellect, the trial of if they're a 5-head.
Exactly, and we will have to see how that will play out here today. I think a lot of people were surprised that the Trial of Confidence couldn't quite go their way. That game number 2 ended up falling to Suning after getting that lead. But Trial of Coordination going their way, and one last trial here today against our top 3, JDG, looking to keep V5 from pushing forward into that top spot.
And there's an extra caveat to all of this as well, because as they move into this 5th trial, and we saw a little bit of this against WE as well, is they've swapped out Sam D. We're getting more of Y4 down in that bottom lane, which is a big change. And when we consider Y4's performance back in spring, he did not look great as an AD carry, but feeling like maybe the communication is better with another Chinese player.
Exactly, and even you saw it in the PP God interview, there were some communication issues there where Sam D, coming over from Korea, not quite able to communicate as well as they would like with the rest of the team. So it looks like Y4 is coming back in, and we want more Y4, because right now they looked really good in their game against WE. He stepped up massively. I know it's only 2 games, but a 15 KDA is pretty damn impressive for this AD carry coming in.
And importantly as well, he looked good during the laning phase, which is one of his big weaknesses in spring. Alongside PP God, it feels like they really have that coordination and that aggression that has kind of given V5 their identity down.
Exactly. Certainly in that duo as well. I mean, we've seen multiple dual lane kills when it is Sam D paired with a PP God, but that doesn't mean it's going to change up with Y4 in the mix. They are just as potent. PP God can support him just as well, and you can be damn sure that they'll be looking to try and take some kills themselves against Loken and Lumel.
Yeah, Y4's been looking great on the Ashe, but so has his opponent that he's coming up against today. Loken will be the guy that he has to take down, and Loken is broken. He's been looking absolutely insane. You can see 7 MVPs so far this split. Absolutely one of the best AD carries in the league.
He's been playing out of his mind. This is the best League of Legends that I've seen Loken play throughout his career. 6.8 KDA, the top of any AD carry at the moment in the league. 28% of his team's damage. His damage to go percentage is absolutely nuts. And his carry performance in these mid to late game fights cannot be understated. If you want someone on JDG to step up and provide that clutch factor, it is going to be Loken. And paired with Lumel, they've turned into a super aggressive duo lane on that bot side, which is not what we would have expected at all. But the duo lane kills are racking in for Loken and Lumel.
Yeah, it's been looking fantastic. And when you consider Loken's growth as a player from him on Top Esports back in 2019 to where he's at right now, he went from a player that was, I feel, fairly underrated back in 2019. Now I feel like he's one of these guys that is fighting for the upper echelons of AD carries, not just within the LPL, but within the world. And this is going to be a series that will really test him, because this bottom lane for V5 has been so dominant.
Exactly, and especially on like the champions that we talked about, like the Ashe has been super important for him. The Ezreal, he has a 14 KDA on as well. Like, he's a 90% win rate on that champion. There are certain champs you just do not give to Loken anymore, because his ability to play super aggressive in these fights, his positioning, how he's able to just eke out every little bit of damage cannot be understated. And why now, especially as Kanavi's been stepping into this more kind of lane-focused role, Loken has risen as the main carry of this team.
And I'm curious if he's still going to prioritize the Aphelios in the way that we've seen across the course of this split, because there are a couple of nerfs in 10-15, so we'll dig into that once we get to the draft. But I do quickly want to talk about the junglers coming in as well, because when it comes to V5's bottom lane, a lot of the dominance and a lot of the prowess has been down to way making things happen on the bottom side.
Exactly. It's the way the jungle paths on both these squads is super interesting. So as you talked about, we have Weiwei who does like to play down towards that bottom side of the map, oftentimes working with PP God, especially if he's on these hook champions like the Nautilus or the Thresh, to set up these plays in the bottom lane. Otherwise, you'll have PP God on something like a Bard. They'll go hand in hand and start roaming around the map, playing through that mid lane, through that top side as well. If we look at the other side, it's a pretty similar story where JDG will actually try and play a little bit more so through the mid lane though, trying to enable Yagao before they start playing in through this bottom side of the map. And this is where I think a lot of action is going to be happening, is through this bottom lane, towards these early dragons, towards these early objectives, and we'll get to see a bunch of brawls on our screen.
One of my favorite things is just that both of these teams are willing to go for these early brawls. This is not the style that we would think about with JDG back in olden times, but these days, this is the style that has started to define this team, and it's one of the reasons that they've become more successful as of late.
Exactly, and you can see here on your screens that those early brawls are often coming with not only that jungle, not only the mid laner, but the support in tow as well. This is not mid-jungle 2v2, this is mid-jungle support 3v3, and that cannot be understated. The impact of all three members on these teams to get these early games set up is absolutely insurmountable when you're trying to play against these guys.
PP God has certainly built his reputation in getting involved in these fights, but Lu Mao, he invented it back in spring. His Bard was game-changing. He's the guy that brought Bard into the meta globally. So, like, you cannot underestimate the opponent PP God's up against here today. But also, when we look at these teams, and especially JDG, the identity is so dramatically different from what we saw in spring. And there has definitely been some turbulence for JDG. They have had games where they've looked somewhat inconsistent. They've been dropping games in quite a few of their series. But they have not been dropping series. They are on an 11 series win streak. That is insane.
It is absolutely nuts. And as you said, look, we have seen some shaky performances from them where they will fall behind in those early to mid game, but the ability of them to control those early dragons, control those early rift heralds is absolutely incredible, especially when we look towards those early dragons. They've got second highest dragon control in the league right now. And despite the fact that they're falling behind at 15 minutes, they are still keeping that super high score when it comes to dragons. So I'm very curious how this starts to play out as we go forward, because when you talk about, hey, look, they do fall behind, but they end up winning out later, it's because they've got this super strong objective control where they can fall back on going towards Dragon Soul, having that prep so then maybe they can threaten a Baron. It's the beauty of how JDG, even if they're falling behind, still set up their early game for success.
It still feels like JDG are relying on these mid and late game fights, though. It's not just about dominating laning phase, which is kind of interesting because it's a sort of opposite to V5. When you see V5 coming in, when they're ahead at 15 minutes, their win rate is 85%. If you let them get a lead, they are going to snowball and crush you. But on the other side of the board, the win rate from behind at 15 for JDG is 61%. If that's over 50%, it's already exceptional. So I'm expecting V5 ahead at 15 every game, and then we just have brawls for the rest of the match.
And that's what makes me so excited about this game, is the ability of V5 to snowball these leads is why they are so strong. It's why they took down Top Esports, why they took games off of Invictus Gaming, why they've looked so good. So when you're going against the JDG, who's so good from these positions, but even if you put them behind, the mechanics of Kanavi, where he's able to make these insane Lee Sin-out plays, where you look at Loken, who's got this immaculate positioning, this insane damage potential, where they're just outperforming pound for pound when you hit those late game fights. There's going to be a lot of on V5's back to try and get control early, keep that lead, outperform JDG, and be the smarter team on the day where they are running away with the map play.
That's a tall ask, to be the smarter team against a squad like JDG. And when it comes to the top lane especially, it's going to be a very interesting matchup between these two players, because when we talk about smart play, for JDG, Zoom was a huge part of that. He was the consistent engage. He was always moving down to be a part of the team plays with his team. And when you think of him, you think of this Ornn right back in spring. However, he's changed his style up a little bit coming into summer. We're not just seeing the Ornn every game, we're seeing him try out some of the different styles, and that has been sometimes where these losses have come from. However, it's felt better and better as the season's gone on.
Especially when we look towards some of the the Bruisers he's found more of a home on, right? The Volley Bears, the Wukongs. These have been the stronger performers from because he gets to be that big engage tool. And that was what the Ornn provided back in spring, and it's what we're now seeing again in summer, is that when Zoom is able to be the engage tool for the squad, everything looks a lot easier. They're all on the same page. The coordination is there. And especially on that Volley Bear pick, Zoom has really found a home on it. They are willing, well, even before we saw Volley Bear rise into the upper echelons of the meta, where he was that ban or pick style, it was Zoom who was the pioneer of that. He was the guy that was always wanting that super high priority on the Volley Bear because they knew how strong it was. Now, they still have the flexibility there in putting it towards Kanavi, but Zoom is definitely the top laner that we've seen the most Volley Bear out of this split.
And I would say as well that he's one of the few top laners that is still taking the Volley Bear to the top side, because generally it's become a jungle pick here in the LPL. But it's about time that we head over to the stage and get this series underway. I know all of you guys at home are just raring to get into this one, so let's head over to the arena as we head into V5 versus JDG. This is the 5th trial of V5. We'll see if they've got the intelligence to take on our spring champions.
As you said, that is a tall task to go against. We've seen how potent JDG are, how Kanavi can set up these plays with early Dragons, early Rift Heralds, and at least start to bring some of that gold into the favor of JDG. How they can play those late game decisions around Barons where they are able to secure those late game fights, that late game lead. But V5 will have to figure out how to go toe-to-toe against them here today.
It's going to be a challenge for them. JDG, though, going to step onto this stage, and it's the squad, you know, this is not a team that brings out substitutes. This is a team that has been solid and confirmed for the entire split. Zoom, Kanavi, Yagao, Loken, and Luma stepping onto the stage. And they have been indomitable, as I mentioned before, 11 series win streak. But it's important to mention that the games have not always been as consistent as that win streak would allude to.
Especially in their last couple of series. I mean, if we look at the last 3 in particular, LNG, they ended up dropping the game. BLG and E-Star didn't look that strong either, where it was a bit shaky, but they could bring it back. But that's not what you can do against the team that's on your screen here today in Victory 5.
Yeah, as we mentioned before, their win rate when ahead is 85%. This is a team that is going to grab every opportunity you throw at them. It's going to be Bew Bew, Wei Wei, Mole, Y4, and PP God down in the bottom lane. And it's interesting that they are bringing Y4 back in. We did see him against WE. We saw him all through spring, which I don't think he wants us to talk about, to be quite honest. But he did look a lot better than what we saw in spring in their more recent series.
Certainly did. And I think the team as a whole has thrived, and we can even see it represented through Mole, who's looking strong on this roster now as well. And bringing back Y4, I don't feel like it's a massive mix-up in the style that they're still going for in this bottom lane. When we look at Sam D, he was still like Kalista, the Ashe, these kind of more, well, you can set up these big carry performances, but definitely fitting a certain style in this roster that was enabled through Wei Wei, through PP God, through Mole, and that's not going to change for Y4. He's just been enabled a little bit more on this pick.
And one thing that Y4 has brought to the table that Sam D didn't for the entire split is this center pick that has been sneaking back into the meta, and it does add a very serious scaling option to the table. It's the farming center that's come back from a good, I don't know, 8 months ago since last time we saw it. So we'll see if that kind of style, that more scaling option is going to be there for V5, or if they want to just try and snowball. And I have to say, against a team like JDG, if I'm V5 looking at this series, I want to play aggressive, I want to play fast, and I want to try and end this as fast as possible.
And that's why I think there's going to be a couple of contested picks coming into our draft here. The likes of the Volley Bear, the Zoe, the Nidalee, the Lee Sin. I think are going to be a lot of them, but already we are getting in fast and furious to our draft.
Look at these bans, Dagda. We got the Ezreal ban. We already mentioned how Loken absolutely adores the Ezreal pick, but Caitlyn being banned away as well by V5.
So Caitlyn has risen in priority. We saw it a lot yesterday and even the day before, where she started to come through quite a bit and has made a name for herself as this aggressive bot lane that can shove in super hard. But curious to actually see V5 first picking the Renekton. So this is something V5 actually do a bit. I was expecting them to go for the Volley Bear because, as we talked about in Champ Select, JDG loves this Volley Bear pick and being able to take that away. Could have worked out super well for them. Wei Wei has been playing a little bit of it, but when we look at Wei Wei's champions, especially when he's been pinched a little bit with the Graves and the Nidalee gone, I thought that Volley Bear would have been the priority.
To be fair to them though, the Renekton does exceptionally well into the Volley Bear if it's in that top lane matchup. So it's kind of saying, hey, if you want the Volley Bear, you're going to take it to the jungle role. We'll see if JDG are going to respect that though, as they are going to be looking towards this Ashe. It's Loken's second most played champion alongside Ezreal and Aphelios.
I agree with the Renekton into the Volibear matchup. The only thing is, I think there's so many high priority picks in this. I mean, you've still got the likes of the Twisted Fate, which both Yagao and Mole have been putting super high priority on. We already saw the Zoe taken away, so it feels like that's the next go-to, especially for Yagao here. And when you have the Volibear, you've got this Ashe, and now you could potentially be locking in the likes of this Twisted Fate for JDG. You have a super strong pick composition that can come out in these first 3 picks.
The center we talked about before has been locked in for Y4. This is a unique pick that he's brought to the team that we didn't see from Sam D previously. And Mole, he grabs his Syndra that he's looked exceptional on all split long.
Yeah, there's a couple of picks that Mole has looked incredible on. The Zoe's one and this Syndra has been the other. So I'm excited to see once again what Mole can do, because in their last 2 series, Mole has really stepped up as the hard carry for this team in a lot of situations where he has had the play that turns the game around. One of them was on this Syndra pick right here.
And Yagao, he knows this matchup. He's going to lock in the Echo. It's kind of this counter pick to the Syndra that we've seen go both ways, because while it is a counter pick in that mid lane, you have to be able to play it well.
And this is interesting because it's now the 12th unique pick for Yagao. It's not something he's picked up previously in summer, so I'll be excited to see what he can do against Mole here today. And especially when we talked about, hey, JDG like to play through this mid lane at the moment, setting up Yagao for success. This is a pick that can most certainly snowball in this matchup.
Well, these two teams know something that we don't, Dagda, because there was a Caitlyn ban earlier. Now there's a Karthus ban in the second round. The respect ban immediately goes towards Lumao as that Bard is taken off the board as well.
Isn't it funny, though, that both the likes of the Bard and the Thresh that we often see prioritized, especially for V5, have slipped through the draft, and even that Bard that we've seen other teams first pick, that super high priority, have slipped through the draft. Karthus as well banned away. This is something we've seen a little bit more so in LCK. We haven't seen a huge amount here in the LPL, but obviously JD Gaming, as you said, these teams, they know something's up.
Tom Kench being removed because it's such a potent combo alongside the center there. It's Gangplank removed from Zoom's champion pool, just in case that Volibear does go into the jungle. And now JDG, they have to decide where they're going to go next. Bear in mind that Thresh that you mentioned before is still open. That could be an option.
It could also be the option here across the way for V5 if they want to go towards PP God. Like, he has had the most success on the Bard and on the Thresh. These have specifically been his 2 most picked. And even when you look at the likes of the Thresh, it's got a 70% win rate on that champion. So potential here to go towards that. However, when we look at JDG locking in that set, that's still a lot of flexibility here in the JDG draft. Set can go support, jungle, top. You can have that Volibear even going towards the jungle. So we're still waiting to see where a lot of these picks on the JDG side are going to end up, but here we go.
We got the Lilia locked in. I'm assuming for Wei here, since Mole already has a pick, since Mew already has a pick, and then we're going to see PP God hovering onto this Leona. Bear in mind that Thresh is still available, but Lilia, Dagda, this is going to be spicy.
It really is. And the thing about Lilia is we often see her, at least in solo queue, in that top lane. She runs the Conqueror. What we've seen in the LPL so far is that she'll go phase rush in the jungle, and then you're looking to be just teetering along the edge of these fights, trying to make sure that you can get enough damage off with your Q and maybe put a few people asleep with your ultimate. But especially what Lilia likes is when there's a multiple different carries in the other team that are coming into her, because it makes it a lot easier then for her to spin that shillelagh around, hit onto multiple people, and then get a big sleep. And when you look at JDG's composition, that's a lot of people that are diving in on top of it.
So it's Anar as the final pick. That set is going into the support position. Kanavi's taking the bear into the jungle. And I don't know, Volibear against Lilia, I have no idea how that jungle matchup works out, but Zoom certainly got himself a comfortable matchup for the top lane.
They certainly do. Well, when we look at that jungle matchup, at least to start things off, both super good at clearing. Will both have pretty much a similar clear path as how, well, a clear speed, sorry, as to how quickly they can move out onto their path. It's just a case of where they want to start, what lanes they want to influence. But when we look at the JDG gaming composition, these guys can play either that 1-3-1 where Nar can go towards a more split push orientated build, or they can look to just shove out these waves and then group up massively and then have this insane team fight where you've got the Narrows coming in, Echo Stuns coming across the board, multiple flanking positions that could do super well against Victory 5's composition.
And I have to say, I'm just really curious what Wei is going to be able to do on this Lilia during those kinds of skirmishes and team fights. That lilting lullaby, if you can get a stack on everyone before popping the ult, that can win a fight in itself.
It really can, and that's where we want to see V5. If they are able to go toe for toe in these team fights, their composition is set up for those 5v5 brawls. We'll have to see if they can do it here today.
We'll have to see what they've got up their sleeves here. BuBu with the Renekton first pick up against that Gnar in the top side. And BuBu's been one of the more aggressive top laners of the league. We'll see if he can take on Zoom. People calling Zoom the best top laner in the world back in spring.
JDG 加油！希望你们有精彩的发挥，打出好成绩。JDG 加油！
It's time to head onto the Rift, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for Victory 5's 5th trial, the trial of intellect. And JDG looking good coming out of the draft here. Very cohesive composition from them. V5 on the other side. They're pulling out some wild cards here. Lilia in the jungle, Y4 on the center once again. And I'm really curious if they can keep up this tempered aggression that we know them for.
It's going to be exciting to see here. And especially, I mean, you're talking about wild cards. Even looking just straight off the bat at Weiwei on this Lilia, we talked about, hey, we've seen Conquer in the top lane. We've seen Phase Rush from the jungle. This is a Dark Harvest coming through for the Lilia. So he wants to get into these lanes, start stacking up those Dark Harvest procs, and be a real big carry for the team in this scenario. And the way that we've seen Lilia built has been a lot through like the Liandry's Torment, the Riley's Crystal Scepter, these kind of items that synergize so well with our kit. So I have to see if that's going to be the name of the game here for Weiwei once again, or if you'll see him even prioritize something like an early Zhonya's, which is what we saw from Leian in that Vici series.
And it's interesting to see both junglers going with a solo start as well. No leashes on either side of the board, which means the bot laners are going to be fine to just get into lane and try and contest for level 2. And you can see both PP God and Lumao, they're battling for dominance already in that bottom lane.
They really are already.
Skirmish going on as PP God's in trouble. He's ignited, has to flash away as Loken gets the slow. JDG winning out the trade.
Yeah, you don't win out in a level 1 trade against this set. Huge amount of damage, a lot of burst, and as well paired with Nash. But there's brawls across the board here, Munch.
It's already kicking off. This is what I wanted to see. And you can see that Yagao knows he has to be aggressive in this matchup. And he's going to be exactly that as he gets his Z drive once again onto Mole. But that's the thing about this matchup, is the Syndra's always going to win on the backside of this. This might just be a solo kill as Yagao barely holds on to his flash.
Just about managing to get away from that one. Will be forced to recall. Mole can push in this wave and then recall, which works out pretty well for himself, but not going to be too much when all is said and done. Both these guys will end up burning pretty much the same amount in this round.
So let's talk quickly about the game plan, because I've got a feeling we're going to have a lot of action here this game, Dagda. Who's the ones that need to put their foot forward and find advantages early on?
It's not so much about who finds advantages earlier on, whereas so much about how both these teams want to play. So as we get to the later points in the game, you've got those, as we talked about, the options here on JDG to go for either a split push style with Zoom, with Yagao, or at least with the build that we're seeing, or the rune choice from Zoom. It looks like he's going to be looking more towards these team fights because he's gone for the grass. Weiwei?
Yeah, Kanavi grabs himself the Scuttle Crab as Weiwei tried to contest for that one, but in the 2v2 right now, Weiwei not feeling that confident.
And this sucks for Weiwei, because what's going to happen here is Kanavi can move down towards this bottom side. Look at where the bot lane is pushed in, although as I say that.
So we've got a bit of a 2v2 in the bottom side, and I think PP God actually might not be able to get away with this one. The flash forwards, and that's a kill. Going the way of Loken, we talked about this bottom lane. JDG winning out.
And they've become so much more aggressive on JDG's side, but Weiwei is here to punish that.
It's not over just yet. Loken doesn't flash in time, and it means he has to flash after the fact using the cleanse as well. But take a look at the graphic on the bottom of your screen.
If you have time.
If you've got time, because this is all about seeding right now.
It is all about seeding. It is all about V5. Still capable alongside JDG in hitting that first place spot, but we need V5 to try and, well, they need a couple of results to go their way and win every single series, but that's going to be a tough call for them. They've still got EDG and Rogue Warriors left after this series, but they got to take down JDG first here today.
Yeah, I got backing away in the mid lane. He's going to be under constant pressure so far this game. But I just want to quickly iterate what was on that graphic there. V5, the way that they make playoffs is defeating JDG here, or if RNG loses to top esports later today as well, V5 will still manage to find themselves locked in at least in the top 8.
So, after all the shenanigans we've had and all this early aggression, I want to take a quick look at where we're at. Because right now, you've got advantages for JDG on that bottom side of the map, which is why when you look at Knavi's jungle path, he's gone towards that Raptors, he's going to clear down towards this bottom side and try and use the pressure from Loken and Lumao, either to try and make another gank onto the flashless Leona, or he can even look at this dragon that has just spawned. And that seems to be the game plan here, with Lumao already trying to get vision around that objective. Whereas when we look at Weiwei, he's kind of been set behind a little bit. He did manage to grab the scuttle on the bottom side of the map, which is so good for him. I was worried he'd actually lose both scuttles because of the way Knavi had already taken that fight topside and because of the pressure JDG had bought. But at least for the moment, Weiwei has been able to farm up. He's going to get his first back now and then can have a bit more influence onto the map. But with Knavi backing first, he's got the one that can make the plays. And there's that dragon that we talked about.
And it is so crucial that JDG and specifically Knavi is finding these kinds of advantages early on in the game. We already mentioned before the game how when V5 are ahead at 15 minutes, they have an 85% win rate. JDG cannot afford to let this team find advantages, and you can see that they are matching the aggression early.
And the thing is, both of these squads revolve super heavily around that dragon. They want to have that pressure of that third dragon, the soul point coming onto their side. When you look at JD, oh, hang on.
Loken's in trouble. He doesn't have any summoners right now, but he walks away from the play as Weiwei looks for his route into the battle right now. Lumao will be the target. He's CC'd. The haymaker onto PP God, though. They turn this one around. 1-for-1 now. As Knavi finally enters the battle, he's going to jump straight onto wide 4. Should be able to trade it, but there's a flash coming out from the center. And suddenly, Knavi's found himself alone. Yagao and Mole in a 1v1 in the meantime as the double kill comes through. Mole is just about to go down. There's the chrono break to pull out for Yagao. This is absolutely nuts. But Weiwei wants himself 3, but Yagao turns it around.
Yagao managing to dodge
Wait,
away.
what?
What is going on?
Zoom gets a solo kill under the enemy tower.
This is the League of Legends that I wanted. This is the brutality I was expecting in this series. Intellect be damned. These teams, they may be playing smart, but this is living by the seat of your pants, making sure that consistently they are outplaying, outperforming their opponents.
And, you know, a lot of people will be saying, this is not intelligent gameplay, this is wanton aggression, but it's not. This is JDG reading what V5 have to do and outplaying them at their own game.
And what we talked about coming into this, V5 want to play through that bot side, but Knavi has mixed things up. He's already made this gank to try and turn that bottom lane play around, while already Loken and Lumao have done a great job of doing that for themselves. But Yagao matching Mole on these roams. Mole will oftentimes get involved in these plays in the bottom lane. We said it's a 3v3 a lot of the times when it comes to the mid. It's a 4v3 when it comes to that bottom lane. And for Yagao, great job. One, making that play and counteracting it. This flash away as well means that the watch out Eep, the W from the Lilia, doesn't connect. He manages to get another kill. And in this top lane, Zoom with this counter pick does a great job. Hop away and manages to turn this around onto Bubu. Just looks like hit 6. Here comes the push in. I'm surprised Bubu stuck around in this low health, because I imagine W for the stun. There you go. Q, wallop, and you're done for, mate.
I mean, he had Dominus up, but he didn't get a chance to use it. In a full CC chain there, Bubu not quite respecting enough. And Knavi, off the back of all of these early advantages, now gets to go towards the Herald.
And we highlighted in the segment before this how important these objectives are. JDG is first for Baron Control in the league and second for Dragon Control in the league. When you look at V5, they're third for Baron Control and fourth for Dragon Control. Both of these teams' game plans revolve very heavily around these early objectives, so then they can set up for later game where they're in control. They can find these fights where they are comfortable, they've got a gold lead, they've scaled to the position that they're happy with, and now JDG are the ones that off of these early plays are setting themselves up through these early objectives.
So we do have JDG with a 1,000 gold lead as of right now, but I do want to bring your eyes to this scoreboard where Weiwei does have 2 kills for himself, also an assist. He's got a tiny CS lead, but importantly, he's already finished his Runic Echoes. One of the issues with this Lilia is sometimes it can take a little while before... Oh, that was close for Yagao there. It can take a little while before you get your items on board, but those 2 early kills will bridge that gap for Weiwei.
The issue when we look at JDG, for V5 fans, when we look at JDG though, is look at where those kills are from. we have 2 kills already onto Yagao, who are saying, hey, look, he wants to try and play in a side lane and then come in for picks or a flank. And now that he's got 2 kills under his belt, this mid lane matchup goes heavily in favor of Yagao, especially now that he's going towards that level 8, level 9. This is usually the point in time where that matchup does swing in favor of the Echo. That's only doubled down thanks to all that extra gold. And when we look at Zoom as well, he's heavily bullying BuBu in this top lane. Look at the CS difference and a kill, and he's working towards that Black Cleaver. You've got so many problems now on V5's side to try and deal with against JDG.
And these advantages are not going to go away unless Loken gets caught, but he has this cleanse, so he's okay, gets out with his life there. Valiant effort from PP God, but another effort towards the top side here. As Zoom is going to look for a way into the play. It's going to be Mini-Gnar for now, but he's got a whole team alongside him. Shields across the squad as well. Coming out from center as BuBu survives for now. Chrono break out of Yagao, but he goes straight on into the loving arms of Mole. Now looking for Zoom, but he hops out over a minion, and he'll be out of the play.
Swirl Seed not able to connect with Zoom, and he will manage to get out, but good turnaround from V5, and that's exactly the kind of plays that they need to do. Weiwei throughout this split has been so strong at tracking the enemy jungle, tracking the plays that the enemy wants to make. And this time, Weiwei's able to get one up over Canal.
So, good little answer there from V5, and it's important that they're starting to fire back in some of these plays.
Yeah, and you can see that Swirl Seed there, comes in, manages to set things up, but realistically, the TP for Mole and Weiwei being here just completely turns that around. And you can see Weiwei already knew that this was coming, just going straight towards that top lane to make sure no shenanigans, but Kanavi!
See you later, Volibear. He's going down immediately. Showstopper from Lumao, and there's a next face breaker as well. Mole can't do anything about this one. Wow, what an answer from JDG.
You don't have the damage from Y4 to try and turn that around. Weiwei, because he's still this Lilia, is quite squishy at the moment. Same when it comes to Mole. So when you get Lumao with these monstrous face breakers, it's turnaround time for JDG.
And that's the thing. Sure, you've caught out Kanavi, but he doesn't have the gold. Look at the 2 carries on the side of JDG. If they're near the play and you've got Lumao CCing people, it doesn't matter if they're outnumbered. They're going to win.
They definitely are. And this is where we've got to start looking at, okay, so what does this mean for the next couple of minutes? Because we've got an Infernal Dragon on the card that both these teams are going to be looking for. You've got 3 kills now into Loken. He'll be able to most certainly, well, won't have time to back before the Blade of the Rune King now. But JDG, using this Rift Herald, creates pressure in the mid. They can turn towards this Dragon. They will get the plates, and they're all going into the hands of Yagao. Yagao is so far accelerated in this game, it is unbelievable.
It is rare that you see a first tower of the game with plates as well going down in the mid lane. That is such a phenomenal advantage for JDG, and it means that V5 have just lost a ton of map control.
And it's not too bad at the moment for V5. Because remember what we were talking about. Hey, look, JDG, they are more focused on the side lanes, especially for Yagao. Well, what they want is Yagao to get these side lane turrets down so he can shove in a wave, and then he can move to join in with the rest of JDG in this 1-4 split push. So although the mid lane tower going down does suck, it's still savable for V5 where they can push out these waves, and then as long as they're able to try and protect some of these side lanes a little bit better, they can keep themselves in check. V5 also, at least with Yagao backing now, no teleport available, they're the ones that get advantage over towards this Dragon, which I'm surprised at. I really thought that JDG, after using that Rift Herald mid, would have turned that in towards the Dragon.
I mean, JDG had a 3,000 gold lead leading into that Dragon. It's still V5 that just managed to waltz in off the back of the recall from Yagao, as you say. In the meantime, though, Zoom is like, oh, Yubi is not here. Fine, I'll take a whole bunch of turret plays for myself as well.
And I think that's why. This is, why JDG are trying to make this play is like, look, we can go get a recall.
Oh, hang on, they're under the tower onto Loken. Look at the burst damage coming on through. Ash doesn't get to move. Lumao pulls PP God in, but he's got himself a stopwatch, so he'll move out with his life right now, but this sleep comes through. There's no way to escape from this team of V5. They're locking everybody down, and Yagao, not long for this world, trying to break into the play. PP God barely survives the last second heal from Y4.
And you can see Weiwei is doing such a good job in this Lilia, playing around that true damage. The Q, the edges of it, that little shillelagh swing, that's what is where you can get that true damage, and that is doing so much work against Yagao in that situation. So 2 kills back in favor of V5, and JDG now, that 3,000 gold lead, starting to get a little bit smaller, but they did manage to get that top lane turret.
They got literally 10 times the turret plate gold of their opponents right there. The top lane turret went down. As you said, they got the first turret in the mid lane as well. But in terms of kills, scoreboard right now is 7 for 7. It's a 2,000 gold lead in favor of JDG.
And this is the play where we got to see on bot side. Loken gets just about caught by the Zenith blade of PP God. And then that burst damage coming through over the top is just crazy at the moment. Then we look at Weiwei here as well. Yagao realizes too little too late that he's been caught out. There's the sleep from the ultimate. Then you got Maul following up. The burst damage is too high. Fair play from Yagao to try and finish off PP God. Nerdy manages it, but just not quite.
So now, finally, V5 are going to be the ones to grab themselves a Herald, and they might be able to get down one of these towers. But they are 3 towers down right now. They're falling so far behind in tempo when it comes to those, but Yagao is in a 1 versus 5 right now. Everybody jumping on in. Does get himself the shield, which means he can escape. And now Kanavi looking for the re-engage onto PP God. Suddenly, out of nowhere, there's a whole bunch of action. But it's Maul up in the top side right now.
Look at where Lumao is, though. He's still looking for these plays. Doesn't have the flash available.
He's kind of lonely right now, but Bubu looks to be the target. Facebreaker in. Loken is here, but Crystalline Arrow going to be held onto for now.
But as you said, Munch, Maul is still in this top side. He's still pushing in this turret. And at the moment, V5, because they haven't gone down to any of these plays, they're still relatively okay. So we get a lot of tussling back and forth. No one falls except this tower in this top side.
So V5 finally get themselves their first tower of the game. 3,000 is the gold lead for now, but once this tower falls, that will be minimized ever so slightly here for V5.
And we're starting to see these crucial items for Victory 5 come in as well, because this game has been very much accelerated with how quick it has been. So you've got that Black Cleaver nearly completed now for Y4. You're seeing the Rylade's Crystal Scepter is going to be the first port of call for Weiwei as well. So a lot of control in these fights. The bot side.
Yagao wants to go for a 1v1 onto the Vietnamese Alligator. Not going to find it for now. And he will just force Bubu out of the lane. Bubu is not having a fun game. Look at the CS deficit that he's found at the top lane.
He's not having a good time at all, and this is why Zoom is actually pretty terrified when you give him a counter matchup, especially if you're going to first pick this Renekton, and Bubu just won't be able to stand toe-to-toe. I mean, look, he hasn't even got his Black Cleaver completed. You look over at Zoom, Black Cleaver. Now he's got that Abyssal Mask completed as well. Like, he is so far accelerated right now, it is unbelievable.
I mean, you're absolutely right. He's on 2 tanky items for himself. Well, I guess the Black Cleaver, not really that much of a tanky item, but he's going to be getting massive. Once he turns into Meganard during these fights, it's going to be difficult to deal with. But I'm keeping my eyes on Weiwei here as he recalls, might be able to finish off his second item. Oh, he's so close, but he's not going to be able to finish it off just yet. Could be the Rylai's, could be the Liandry's. You'd expect potentially the Liandry's first.
Well, he's kind of gone for a bit of a mixture there. I wasn't sure what we'd see. Usually we do see the Liandry's first, or at least the Haunting guys, and then you can go build into something else. A little bit of times we'll see like Haunting guys into Deadman's Plate, and then you would just stick at that. But especially when he has that Blasting Wand already, could just work straight up towards the full Liandry's Torment, then over into the Rylade's Crystal Scepter.
So everything has suddenly slowed down a little bit here, Dagda. We're seeing these two teams take a breather. So what is the next step? If you're a JDG fan, they've got themselves the lead. How do they turn this lead into a victory?
Well,
oh,
I have to hang on.
Lullaby comes out onto Loken. He's going to have to cleanse. Just about survives the Unleashed Power. Maul might not be able to survive, though, as he's taken down by Kanavi. Yagao on the backline, jumping onto Y4 as well. Forces a flash for himself. Still has the Chrono Break available as Weiwei ignited and trying to prance away, but the bear chomps on down and hits him with the paws. PP God just about gets underneath his tower here, but another fight going the way of JDG.
And that's how JDG tried to accelerate this game. It's by shoving out a side lane and then having Yagao come in with that teleport, come in from a flank position, and get onto V5. If you've got multiple different directions that this fight is trying to kick off from, it's actually pretty difficult for V5 to deal with. Whereas for JDG, they are looking so good right now. They've got their 4,000 gold lead. They're getting their second dragon. Rift Herald, though, is still in the hands of Weiwei, but it's going to time out pretty quickly. He's got to get that one out onto the map.
It's not ideal when you're just going to have to drop it in a random lane either. So it started off onto Loken.
And this is a major overcommitment from V5. There's no reason to try and go for this play. All they really wanted to do here was take the tower. You had the Rift Herald there, you had the members, but unfortunately, when Mo gets caught out by that Enchanted Crystal Arrow from Loken, that's when JDG are able to collapse. And you actually have a ward there that spots that JDG are kind of sitting in that river area, so I'm surprised to see V5 go for the play.
So they do finally get this mid lane tower down. They're going to look for a second charge with the Rift Herald. They should be able to get, at very least, the charge here, but there's no way for them to fully contest onto the tower. And I want to quickly mention that play before we get more action coming off here, Dagda, that this is JDG we're talking about. And the second that you overcommit, the second you overstep as V5, like they did onto Loken in that mid lane tower, JDG of all teams is going to punish you 100% of the time.
And that's exactly what JDG are doing. They are trying to, with this composition, punish the draft from V5. You saw that early Renekton come in. Right, we're going to go straight towards this Gnar. We're going to have a fantastic laning phase here for Zoom. Same with Yagao. Kanavi making sure that Yagao again is set up in that mid lane beautifully. And then we have Loken and Lumao powering home in that bottom lane. The duo kills again and again. JDG are looking so on form. And after what we'd already highlighted as a couple of shaky series from these, this is the JDG that we saw in that Spring Split final. Why they are our Spring Split champions.
JDG feels like, even though they did have some rough series this split, they've had some games that they've lost. It feels like it's all been part of the training montage. I feel like I'm watching Rocky Balboa right now. They've been training up, and now against the tougher opponents, they're pulling out all of the stops. And this is the clean, consistent JDG that we got so used to back this split.
And unfortunately for V5, it's not exactly the V5 that we have seen. They tried to play through this bottom side of the map, hasn't quite worked out for them. Weiwei is going still for these carry-orientated junglers. I mean, the Lilia here, but no engage from Yagao. He has gone towards that Riley's Crystal Scepter as a second item, so trying to be a little bit more utility-focused here, but
there's going to be the lilting lullaby here onto Kanavi, who's just going to leap out of the play. This is the thing about Volibear. He's so damn safe. The jump is just so hard to deal with.
And as well, when you're on Weiwei's side, he has actually used that ultimate, so trying to lock down Kanavi, but they weren't quite able to do so. So it's ultimate for ultimate. And for anyone who's a little bit confused by Lilia, actually we probably should mention that. Basically the way Lilia's ult works is, if you deal damage to someone, then you can ult and they will fall asleep after a short period of time. So that's why V5 are very much relying on Weiwei getting multiple people hit by Weiwei's abilities so they can then put to sleep multiple people in JDG's.
It's a little like Zoe's sleep, where it's going to take a second to kick in and then you'll be essentially stunned for a few seconds there. But it's important to mention that the actual ult itself has unlimited range. It just has to have a mark on someone previously. The marks can only be applied by Lilia, but that Swirl Seed, the E, has unlimited range, so there are ways to make picks happen at a very long distance.
And as well, just like with Zoe's sleep, if you wake someone up from that sleep, they're not happy because they've just taken a whole heap of extra damage as well. So this is where you've got to be relying on multiple people sleeping in these fights, and why Weiwei wants JDG to be jumping in on top of him, and how V5 can potentially make these fights work. But though, unfortunately for them, JDG are doing such a good job of separating out these fights, finding more skirmish-orientated scraps where they are more suited to that style of play.
I do just want to quickly mention, as we look over the scoreboard here, that Y4, despite being the guy that was on the V5 that really didn't work out in spring, despite being essentially the new member stepping back in, he's looking like the most consistent member on the entire team right now.
And that's what we said in the last games. He was on that 15 KDA after 2 games. He had been looking good. The problem is, V5 as a whole have to be looking good for them to try and face off against JDG. And right now, JDG are controlling this map. Now moving in towards this more split push orientated role that we were talking about. Yagao in a side lane. Zuma's built not for a side lane. He's built for these team fights. So it will be this 1-4 split push with JDG trying to enable Yagao or have him joining these flanks with TP or just wandering through the jungle of V5.
So Dagda, I want to quickly talk about some scaling options here for V5, because Yagao actually maybe stepping a little too far. Does have the TP available for himself. But when you see a center on a team, when you see things like Syndra as well, what does it look like for V5 in the later stages of the game? Does this get better for them?
It's not, as we said in the beginning, so much of a scaling thing. It's like V5 want to try and find 5v5 fights where they can actually set up front to back. Fortunately for them, though, JDG are not giving them that option. Yagao in a side lane, they're coming in from multiple different positions, and here we go, TP for this dragon fight.
TP down into the bottom lane right here from Yagao. You can see that JDG really want to fight for this one. It's only a Cloud Drake right here. This is getting them to soul point, but it wouldn't be the soul itself. Zoom looking to try and build his Rage Gene before the fight kicks off, but he's forced into the pit here. Yagao looking for a 1v1. Dragon finally taken by JDG, and they're forcing the fight immediately. PP God with the stone plate increases Lumao's damage. Look at the combo. JDG, that was perfect.
It's not even close. JDG wiped the floor with V5. They get the Dragon, and they can turn directly towards this Baron. And Loken, with that Enchanted Crystal Arrow, sets up everything.
Lumao, you are a beautiful, beautiful man. That was insane. The split-second PP God Stoneplate comes up. He goes for the showstopper. It just half-healths everyone on the team of V5.
It was so well played from JDG, but that's the decisiveness we want to see from our top team in the league right now. This is the play we've been begging JDG to show us in the last couple of series. And once again, when they are up against the top teams in the LPL, that's when they show it. Bubu does a good job here of trying to separate Yagao from the fight, but that doesn't matter, because Lumao slam dunk, face breaker onto everyone. And from that point forward, there's no turning back as Yagao comes in from the side and Loken's free firing the whole time.
Some beautiful positioning there from Loken as well to dodge away from the solar flare. So with that lethal tempo, he could just be hammering these arrows out. And now suddenly, things have gone from bad to worse for V5. They were about 5,000 gold down before. Now they're about 8,000 gold down. This is starting to become insurmountable. They've got to find a miracle play.
And that's the thing, is that JDG, although they're opting into these fights, although they end up all brawling constantly, it's JDG that are playing the map better. They're always trading up in towers before these fights were happening. They're willing to sacrifice the Dragon where Zoom could get pressure topside. They can make plays towards Rift Heralds. This is why this was the trial of intellect, because even though JDG can tussle with the best of them, they've still got the mind of a fighter behind us.
And that's the thing, right? It's not that them being intelligent means that they're not good mechanical players. They're exceptional mechanical players. It's just that it's not their only strength. They have way more in the arsenal than that. And one important thing about that last fight as well is Zoom didn't even have Mega Gnar. They didn't even have all of their ultimates available. And the Gnar ultimate is such a crucial team-fighting team in most compositions that run Gnar. JDG still get away with it just off the back of Luke.
And this is now so difficult for V5 to try and defend against. Zoom is super far ahead of Bubu, so he's able to control this bot side. Yagao,
oh
well,
my goodness.
Here's a demonstration.
Mole's being pushed towards the rest of JDG here. The Z-Drive Resonance not going to be able to be used though, and actually Yagao's the one in trouble, trying to get out of the play, has a stopwatch to keep himself safe as everybody jumps into the fray to keep this mid laner alive. Yagao gets out with his life. Kanavi might have sacrificed his own to make the play happen though. PP God looking to chase his Bubu, looks to find a way in. In goes the Croc, spinning it around the shadow across the squad, and suddenly things turn on their head.
V5 managed to find the play, over aggression from JDG, nets at opening for V5, and they will not be able to get onto Yagao, but they are going to be very happy with defending that Baron play and getting so many of them removed from the JDG side.
And they kept their inhibitors alive. This happened before the Siege could really commit, but in goes Yagao once again. PP got the target. He finds one for himself, looking for the 2v1. He's way forced out of this one. Swirl Seed. But it looks like the ultimate on cooldown.
Echo with these double Cloud Dragons is so disgusting. Look, his ult is nearly back up. It's halfway off that cooldown, and Yagao is playing around this amazingly. Bit too far here when we get to this play, where JDG are forced to try and rescue Yagao, but I believe at this stage, it's not going to net too much here for V5. There's not like there's any big objectives that they can go and play for. It will give them a bit of gold back in the favor and shut down this Baron play, but we still have that Cloud Soul that's now coming up and available for JDG. And you've invested a lot there from V5. The TP on Bubu, flash from Bubu as well. So I'll be curious to see now how V5 try and approach this next Dragon fight, because that's going to be the big one here. That's where you can have JDG running towards that soul. And as we already saw, Yagao is a nuisance when he gets this ultimate cooldown reduction. And now give him a speed up after that as well. It's going to be super hard to lock down Yagao.
So Yagao oversteps his team pace for it during that skirmish, but it looks like it's V5 that have overstepped this time. 3 of them caught out in the mid lane, and the whole of JDG is here to punish. Loken got found by Mole. He's just going to get annihilated, as Syndra often does annihilate AD carries. And Mole, he's looking to proxy a wave because he knows he's in trouble. Yagao going to be chasing this one on through, and I don't think there's a way that Mole gets out of the play. It is possible, however, to see some kind of shenanigans. Wait, no it isn't. The rest of the squad's here as well. Kanavi in with the bear slap onto Mole.
Phase rush.
Should finish him off in the end. It was a long charade. He bought a lot of time, but Zoom's in the base.
Buying time is better than actually losing more of their base, because BuBu won't be able to defend against Zoom. Zoom will get this, but it does stop the likes of that bottom lane turret, which is super low, from going down. Unfortunately, though, JDG will be able to pick up this dragon. V5 cannot defend, and now we've got Elder in 6 minutes. We got a Baron in a minute, and JDG do not look like they are going to stop taking over this game.
Absolutely not. Yagao as well has a Dark Seal with 10 stacks right now. I'd love to see him go and upgrade that for his final item. But what an arrow coming out onto Weiwei.
What coordination from JDG. They see a single opportunity. Slightly overextended here from V5, and that's all that JDG need. The arrow into the showstopper, into JDG, picking off so many members of V5, and then you don't even get a chance to fight for that dragon.
Look at the Gnar ult cooldown ticking away on the top right. Well, he's just changed form, so he ruined it. But the Gnar ultimate looks like it's got about a 20-second cooldown at this point. You can maybe do that twice in a fight.
It gets a little bit silly when we get to 3 Cloud Dragons for JDG's side. This is why they're perfectly happy to start firing out these ultimates willy-nilly. Like Loken's Enchanted Crystal Arrow, you can just fire that out. Maybe you make a pick, doesn't matter. You'll have that up super fast. Same with Yagao and his ultimate. He's able to play a little bit more forward, try to be a little bit more aggressive, try and make these death-defying echo plays.
Swirlseed not going to connect. Here we go. Arrow in. It's going to be a flash from Maul to dodge that one out as Lumao stops from the play. Yagao has to go golden to keep himself safe as Weiwei on the back line getting chased down by Zoom, who finishes him on the back side. Now BuBu trying to get into play, but he's knocked into the wall as the rest of the squad from V5 is taken on down. This is going to be game 1. This is a dominant showing from JDG.
JDG come out swinging in game number 1, saying, hey V5, welcome to playoffs. This is what you've got to face.
Yeah, this is your final trial, the intellect of JDG. They're going to read you like a book. They're going to look at your strategies and counter them beautifully. Not to mention the insane team fighting that we see every single time. What a performance from our spring champions.
Amazing performance from JDG. And look how cool, calm, and collected they look on the stage after what was a slobber knocker of a game. I'm excited for game number 2 after that. But we got to look at how JDG approached this, because 2v2 kills in the bottom lane from Loken and Lumao, looking absolutely incredible. Kanavi reading what Weiwei wants to do and shutting down those continuous plays to try and win that bot lane back in favor of Y4 and PP God. And again, we talked about these objectives, how crucial they would be as we started to move forward. Well, Kanavi got off the bat rolling very quickly, was managed to pick up the first Drake. They let the second dragon go, but they managed to get Rift Herald, snowballing these leads, getting gold in their favor. And then when we got to those team fights, there was just no coming back for V5.
It felt like, you know, I was coming in expecting it to be like V5 get themselves an advantage early on, and then once it gets to the mid-game, JDG try and outsmart. But JDG, they rip that page out of the book. They're not interested in losing the early game. They're like, all right, V5, your strength is the early game. We're going to match you. We're going to outdraft you, and then we're going to play around your very strategy. Beat them in the 2v2 in the bottom side. And then once that bottom lane is not ahead for V5, suddenly the entire strategy falls apart.
And it also felt like JDG were always a step ahead. Every time V5 tried to make a play, whether it was a pick and river where we had Lumao come out of the bushes, turn that around so it's JDG favored. When they try to make these bottom lane plays, Kanavi manages to follow through and make a play.
Yeah.
And then you've just got Zoom, who's manhandling BuBu in the top lane. It never really felt like V5 were able to get a footing in this game, because every time they did, JDG pulled the carpet out from underneath them.
And this is, I just want to reiterate how important this win is for JDG, not just in terms of the standings, in terms of seeding for them to try and make it to number 1 or number 2 seed by the end of the split, but also this is a team that beat Top Esports. Top Esports are widely regarded as JDG's biggest opponents in the standings right now, with IG coming into that conversation as well. Being able to defeat V5 in this kind of fashion, if they can push this to 2 games in a similar fashion, JDG honestly will look like a favorite for the whole tournament for me.
Yeah, this was absolutely incredible. And we've been having conversations all fair about, you know, where do we see all these people lie, those top 3 teams? Well, JDG is definitely making a statement here today against Victory 5. And we do have to look at V5 and kind of go, well, what's going on? because we talked about how strong PP God has been, how well that bottom lane is performing, and this isn't like, oh, well, Y4 is in, they're doing terribly. This is PP God overextending, getting caught out by Lumel, and then Loken following up super well with that synergy Loken and Lumel built up over years of playing together. This is where we kind of go, okay, V5, we got to go back, take it a little bit slower, and don't just rush into these headlong brawls, because JD Gaming, they'll match you toe for toe, but they're winning elsewhere on the map as you go and go for those fights.
And it's important to consider that JDG were winning all of these lanes, like Gnar doing really, really well into Renekton. Obviously, Senna is not exactly a lane-dominant champion. And then in the mid lane, because Yagao got that early lead, because he had the theoretical counter matchup and was able to snowball, there was no point on the map that V5 had an advantage.
And especially when we look at that jungle, and it really felt like Weiwei didn't get a look in this game. The Lilia didn't really do too much.
That's twice now.
Twice now we've seen it happen, where I was like hoping to see a little bit more, because I'm still looking to see how Lilia kind of slots into the meta at the moment, and I haven't been convinced by both of the performances that I've now seen, especially when we're looking at the jungle role more so than the top lane role. I think I would have preferred to see him go back towards something that he's found a little bit more success on. I know the Graves and the Nidalee were taken away, but I mean, we've seen him even go towards Trundles, we've seen the Lee Sins come through. I thought that would be the stall that we'd fall back on. I don't think after that performance we'll be seeing Lilia again, because even when Zoom came in, I think he whittled away maybe
I think like
of his health
look,
bar.
This is an important series for V5.
Yes.
If after that performance they play Lilia again, I don't know what to say. Unless I'm missing something, unless it's worked amazingly in scrims and there's something that we're just missing here. Lilia does not look strong enough to be a priority jungler right now when you've got things that are just so much stronger. Things like the Volibear that was a priority for the other side of the board for JDG. Like, Lilia just could not match up in any way.
No, it really couldn't. And that's why I was super surprised by the draft that came in from V5. Because if you cast your minds back, Renekton first pick, they end up giving across both the Volibear and the Ashe, which have been super strong picks for V5. And then you end up going for this Lilia. It just felt... I wouldn't have agreed. I don't agree with that Renekton first pick, and especially as we even highlighted some of the other major picks that are in this, like the Twisted Fate. Yeah. Although we have seen obviously the nerf come into him, but still the LPL is perfectly happy playing him. We're still seeing massive impacts from that Twisted Fate, so I would have preferred to see them go towards some of these stronger picks in that draft.
Yeah, definitely feel like the draft was maybe off, and I'm not against Lilia. I'm excited to see some successful Lilia, but we're not seeing it just yet, and I'm not convinced just yet. We've got more action, though. That's just game number 1. JDG looking fantastic to start things off with V5. They've got another opportunity to come back into this series. We'll see if they can push us to 3 right after this.
光辉这边的一个状态也很差，这一波 RW 还是蛮有信心去打这一波的。
哎，但巴德这个大招又是看到了熊熊。这时候怎么说？一炮打到熊熊，他们开始抱人进场，自己的血量还可以，打出 W 技能，自己没有死。卡牌的大招有没有机会飞？
那这个阵型 RW 很尴尬呀，要溜了。
但是
交易的闪现拉
能打掉吗？定住了，张无忌直接被秒。卡牌的 Q 技能刮到3个，这边一个进化追过去，一个黄牌定住了巴德。这边熊熊闪现过墙，一技能拉到奥拉夫，给到一个惩戒，奥拉夫也死了。这一波团战还要追吗？卡牌这里没有闪现，看移速能不能跟得上，给到罪名减速，还想杀 Holder
有闪现，什么时候交呢？
哎呀，布拉多这一炮也直接宰掉了无名，那这样的话可能要打一波团灭，
走不掉了呀。整下路水晶正面5打5了呀，看一下
这个杀得上。
两边的操作了，泽帅这边大招刷一下伤害，
没先手呀，没先手的话，阿卡丽也没机会上去。
那大眼瞪小眼儿，等边线了只能。
这勾到了巨魔，黄牌跟上，
哇，这伤害好高啊！
这3个 ADC 打得太快了，一剑是逼出了一个干锅，哇，艾希直接被泽帅2发包就带走了，我天！
那这后续感觉有机会一波了，
杀你毫不费劲儿。
Rampage。
中路佛佛感觉被逮，但是有塔姆在旁边，
先射到了，
没关系，对，有塔姆，这里TP过来，奥恩有机会留人吗？反手被推了一下，这里反手打一套奥恩，
哇，这个加速皇冠确实是有点
这波你别说可以反打，标记
推哪里？
哎呦，
没推到人，
撞空了，
那就尴尬了呀。奥恩在这个时间点没有大招的话，其实他正面的团战能提供的帮助 非常的微小。
这里反手推了一下，假阳来了，直接打倒3个人，反手要秒奥恩，奥恩直接被秒了。心魔的话这边吞了一下队友，魔豪被救了一口，
直接追 A，
后部直接闪现过来 A 了 ，A 死的心魔。
他们打到的速度不是那么慢，但是
4打5接一波，看有没有机会。
利用手长优势可以看拉扯的一个情况吧。
是的，3射手这个时候要发挥作用的，
拉扯还不错，但
闪现过来
闪现，哇！刚说拉扯不错，但是 Hold 终于站出来了，要让熊熊想去抢，看能不能抢到。拉到4个人，空拳轰完之后，看一下大龙是谁的？
机会，
大龙
还好
加2打下
来。
不过这波团战呀，张无忌这边加入一个闪现拉开，但还是走不掉。后续只有乐一存活，这波团战
4杀
，Maple 4杀，
那必须是我了。
那这个时候有没有一手 TP 啊？没有 TP 了，因为中路的兵线已经到了。这个时候正面不打其实才是最稳妥的一个选择呀。
抽了一个假阳，
你看家里面已经开始锤门牙了。但这个时候 BLG 选择了接盘，他们选择了主动打这个圆鼓龙。
对 BLG 这里不能再拖了。
哦，这波团战，
杰杰拿了5个人，假阳撞起来4个，直接被秒掉。哎，伤害很高的，这死高的过来想秒 ，Miss 小榴莲被吃了进去，被突了出来，
但是也没有什么后续了。这个时候小榴莲还在走 A， 已经没拉到 A， 有点机会。双 C， 好像在，
没必要打大龙就可以了啊，打圆鼓龙就可以了。
哇，这一波两边都有点上头。
这我怎么输啊？
While you put your jacket on and count the final steps you take before you're gone. I wish you'd turn just one last time around to see the skies above me falling down. I don't know why you just can't stay here while we say goodbye. You can't deny we had a thing here, don't you realize? I need more than a keepsake, I need you for real. Don't end with a handshake. I need more than a keepsake, I need you to feel. Don't cut out the outtakes. More than a keepsake. You came like a natural disaster. I didn't run away. I thought, bring it on, I'm getting faster, but it's far too late. Now I'm right in the middle of your earthquake, swinging back and forth. I try to hold on to wind and weather, but you're heading north. I don't know why you just can't stay here, why we say goodbye. You can't deny we had a thing here, don't you realize? I need more than a keepsake, I need you for real. Don't end with a handshake. I need more than a keepsake, I need you to feel. Don't cut out the outtakes. I need more than a keepsake, I need you for real. Don't end with a handshake. I need more than a keepsake, I need you to feel. Don't cut out the outtakes. More than a keepsake. I need more than a keepsake. More than a keepsake. More than a keepsake. Oh, I don't know why you just can't stay here. Why we say goodbye? You can't deny we had a thing here.
就接下来比赛嘛，我们会就全力以赴，然后尽量把每场比赛都赢下来，也尽量2-0，因为我们目标是常规赛的第1嘛，因为第1的话就打第4，2、3尽量是 IG 跟 TES 碰一碰嘛，然后就这对我们来说是好事。
I love how the way Lumao is looking at this is like, we got to manage this bracket for ourselves. So that means we got to get first place. Lumao as well, looking amazing in game number 1. I'm Munchables. I'm joined by Dagda once again. What a way to start the day, Doctor.
Oh, that is better than my morning coffee, to be honest. If you aren't awake after that
This
one,
guy
this
likes
is amazing.
coffee.
I do like coffee. I like a lot of food and drink, to be honest. But either way, coming into this, you can see where Lumao's thought process is and why JDG came out swinging. They are looking for that 2-0 because, as you said, you do not want to face IG or top esports as you start to move in towards those playoff brackets. So I really want to see here what these guys are capable of if they can have that similar performance in game number 2.
And this is their second to last series as well. They are running out of time to get those wins on the board. But Lumao, we just saw him talking about the series. He's going to be MVP for game number 1. And I mean, there is the Dragon fight where he got the ult onto PP, got face breaker onto 4 people. I think that in itself just clinched the MVP from there.
Yeah, most certainly did. And Lumao looked absolutely amazing from the get-go. Here's that duo lane kill that we talked about in those early stages of the game. We even talked about, hey, when we started to move in towards potential picks from V5, it was Lumao here who was able to turn this play back around and shut down some of this aggression from V5. He was everywhere, and Munch, after this, like that play at Dragon, that massive showstopper was beautiful from this guy.
And this is without having your Mega Gnar as well. They managed to make this play happen. Just beautiful stuff going through. And I mean, you see Lumao just waiting for PP God to use the stone plate. The second it's up, he goes in.
Yeah, and this is why Lumao looks so damn good on this set. We see it here today against V5. We've seen it previously against BLG where he had these massive flank maneuvers with the Hextech flash over the wall to catch out wings and set up JDG's victory there. The amount of playmaking ability from this bot lane between Loken and Lumao has been absolutely magnificent, and it's great to see JDG having this playmaking potential because that's kind of what we said lacked from this team, right? Was the star power, the people that can stand up and be accounted for sometimes when they need to get into those clutch scenarios. Where now we're seeing Kanavi, we're seeing Loken, and Lumao in that game is showing that he needs to be in that conversation as well.
I mean, Zoom as well stepping up in this game, who's been a little bit shaky this split. So really, really excited to see JDG clearly firing on all cylinders. And when it comes down to that bottom lane, we have to go back to the draft for V5 because I feel like the biggest strength V5 had was that they were one of the best 2v2 lanes in the bottom side of the map. They were willing to be aggressive and find advantages through that lane. But when we look at the draft, Sana is not going to dominate a laning phase, and Leona struggles against Set because the true damage just ignores all of the defensive stats that the Aftershock and the Eclipse are going to offer. So I feel like they need to reinvent what is happening down there so that they don't lose the 2v2 to Loken and Lumao.
Exactly. We've seen them go towards a lot of these picks like the Callista, the Ashes, these kind of picks.
Yes.
And looks like the agreement was here from V5 because Sam D is the player to bring out the likes of this Callista.
And what did we say about Y4 when he first came in at the start of today? He's been playing the Ashe, he's been playing this Senna. It feels like Y4 is their Senna guy. They're using this sub for a specific playstyle, but Sam D, when we think of him, we think of things like this Callista, like the Ashe, that can be more aggressive and make plays.
We think of those MVP performances as well. He is tied with Loken at the moment for 7 MVPs on the V5 side. He's been so instrumental to the victories for Victory 5, and now you can see that priority coming through for Sam D as we get into this draft.
Get rid of the Renekton first pick. It was ridiculous. I think they realized that. They're going back to what's worked in the past. Get yourself a strong AD carry.
Still, though, we do see the Volley Bear left open here for JDG. They can go towards that once again. We also talked about some of these higher priority picks like the Twisted Fate for Yagao and Mole, LeBlanc for Yagao as well, his signature pick from Spring. There's a lot here for JDG to work with.
So now it's JDG saying, hey, we're going to go with the center. We're the ones that are going to go for more scaling down in the bottom lane. And I'm curious how Loken's going to do on this center, whether we do still see aggressive bot lane play coming through. They're going to go along with this Lee Sin for Kanavi. So kind of a very different take on the draft here from JDG comparatively to Game 1.
I did assume they were going to take the Volley Bear. Like, they have prioritized that so much in this summer split. And again, as we talked about, that flexibility between Zoom and Kanavi. But okay, that was quick. Forget the Volley Bear. The Camille coming through for Zoom. He wants to dominate this top lane, but this is interesting because it feels like Zoom, especially after the performance he had in this last game, is just like, right, I can bully up you, I can take these aggressive trades, but you are picking this blind.
Well, they have immediately banned that Renekton, which we've all seen the paint drawing of the 0-3-0 Camille when it goes into Renekton, whack, whack, whack. None of those kinds of shenanigans here. But it is worth mentioning quickly, we have seen little bits of Camille in the mid lane as well. This is to some extent a flex pick. It is more specifically against Zoe though.
Yeah, we've seen a tiny bit with Zoe banned, and I'd be surprised to see Yagao just lock it in. There's a lot of picks that you can still play super heavily against, although you do know he's against the Syndra. Could kind of work. I still think it's not the best of calls in that mid lane. I feel like Syndra still does pretty well into that matchup. But we're going to be looking anyway at the rest of this, because JDG banning away that Karma, making sure that Bubu can't get his hands on that, or even PP God, which has been his fallback when the Thresh or even that Leona's gone from. And there's that Twisted Fate that we were talking about, that high priority pick we thought we'd see a little bit more of in this game.
Now, it is going to be the Camille up in the top side. It's going to be Yagao going with this matchup once again. Looked fantastic in game number 1 of the series, so rinse and repeat with the Echo.
And I'd be a little bit, like, there's a little inkling here for me that we have seen Camille support previously. And we, like, this is going way, way back. I'd be very surprised to see that down there, but can work okay against the Ashe because you can always use the ultimate to
Let's
dodge
get away
her
from the Camille shenanigans. Let's come back to that if it happens. We've got a Mordekaiser in the top lane here for Bubu.
Yeah, and there we go. We're going to be looking over at the Thresh. I'd actually like the Bard to a certain extent here. You can shut down some of these plays, get onto the likes of this Mobile Senna, make sure she's not part of the play. It does make it a little bit more difficult because, as we talked about with JDG, if this is a Camille in a solo lane alongside this Echo, very much a 1-3-1, very much trying to spread out the map. And at least for the Bard, you can set up for these plays where you can get a guaranteed engage onto the 3 members of JDG. But if you end up in this flank scenario where you've got Zoom and Yagao joining in the fray, the Bard can't quite be as good because he's not as strong against some of these dive compositions.
Good amount of long range engage though, and that's a Pantheon as the final lock in here. We have no traditional supports locked in. I think that's the Pantheon for Luma.
It is. It is going to be the Pantheon for Luma. We have actually seen PP God play a little bit of this Pantheon in the bottom lane. It's very much about trying to get out of lane and get involved in that mid lane matchup where you can use the ultimate, join in with Kanavi as he goes towards those ganks, and use that ultimate from the Pantheon to have super high map pressure.
Okay, they are going to swap around.
Yeah.
Loken was holding that Camille a little bit too long for me. I was getting a little bit nervous. It is going to be JDG with the Camille up in the top side that they picked. Blind in that top lane. I'm really curious what Zoom has up his sleeves to that pick, but the Pantheon support as well from Lu Mao. JDG with a game in hand, really pulling out all the stops here.
And this is where I want to see what JD are capable of doing here. This is very much a, hey, we want to go towards this 1-3-1. We think that we are stronger when it comes towards map play, which I don't disagree with them with after that last game. They were definitely the ones consistently trading up when it came to towers, when it came to objectives, and once again, they want to try and make that happen. However, you need time here for JDG. They want the Camille to scale to those 2-3 items. Same when it comes towards this Echo, even to a certain extent towards the likes of the Senna. So when we get towards those mid-game fights where you're looking at 1 to 2 item spikes and the little bit less expensive items for the likes of Sam D and Mole, that's when V5 are going to be strong.
I'm keeping my eyes on this jungle matchup once again though. Wei against Kanavi as we head into game 2.
JDG 加油 ！JDG 加油！勇者无畏，愈战愈强。
Great to see some of the LCK players as well representing for JDG. I guess that's a respect thing after JDG did so well internationally as well. But I'm excited now as we get into game number 2 because this draft got real spicy, Dagda. JDG are 1-0 up, and apparently that means that they can kick back and bring out some of the craziness in game 2.
I would have to see if that's what they're capable of going for here. Because as we talked about, look, JDG, what they're trying to do is get Yagao ahead, get Zoom ahead, take over in this 1-3-1 style. And the best way for them to do that is have Kanavi play towards this top side of the map. But honestly, when you've got Lumao on this Pantheon, he becomes another factor in that play, especially as he gets towards that level 6 mark, where he can man drop all over the place, try and set up plays towards Zoom, towards Yagao, and get these 2 split pushers ahead. Or even at level 1, apparently.
Look at this from Lu Mao. He wants to make plays. There goes Mole's flash. That is such a great play immediately out of Lu Mao.
Exactly, and he's doing this all while Loken's actually helping get with this leash, towards Kanavi, so it's not like he's missing out anything. They are going to have a super hard push from SamD and PP God in this bottom lane, though, and Luma actually might have to take the long way around.
No, he's a Pantheon. He's quite happy to just run at PP God, apparently. Loken here to back him up as well. Luma taking a lot of damage from this one, but focusing the damage on towards SamD, Loken is able to actually grab himself a couple of souls off the back of that.
Yeah, sometimes the scenic route is a bit better for Lumeo, but does take a bit of damage. We'll be able to heal up off the pot. Loken does get some traded damage, but when you look at JDG's bot lane, they can actually start to heal up. Of course, you've got the Senna there, you can help heal.
Lumao did his scenic routes, Dagda, back on Mount Targon. He's done with scenic routes now. He's just looking to brawl. And you know what, off the back of that, like, sure, they don't get level 2, but that was never going to happen anyway, so I think it was fine. Get yourself a couple of souls, why not?
And this is going to be very much a Lumao and PP God type figure, because we've got both of them on these supports that want to get out and roam. Especially as we talked about in our opening desk, is PP God, when he's on this Bard, likes to work with Weiwei to go for these plays where he's roaming around the map and trying to influence towards this top lane, which definitely needs a little bit of help right now.
BuBu already really struggling up on that top side. I can't say I'm an expert in Camille against Mordekaiser, but it does not look good for the Big Metal Man.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see that it was the Mordekaiser that they went with. It does get a little bit easier as you start to get towards like the level 6 and stuff, but definitely not a direct answer towards the Camille. However, here we go.
Kanavi on this Lee Sin, but he gets denied on the kick, has to slide out of the play. Yagao gets a slow onto both members of V5. Kanavi, read like a book, though, by Mole.
Yeah, really good job. That means that, hey, look, Kanavi will be taken a little bit low, but Weiwei can continue to shove in this wave. Clear at the moment. He's just trying to help Mole shove in this wave so he can get it back, come back into the lane, although the stun.
Oh, they're straight onto Yagao, forcing his flash, but it's going to be followed! And Weiwei grabs himself first blood.
Massive mistake from Yagao, not respecting that stun from Mole, and is able to take down the JDG mid laner. Now Kanavi trying to see if he can answer for a play on top side.
He'd love to answer, but Weiwei's coming along as well, and Kanavi realizes this is not a fight that he can win. Now a TP coming through from Mole as well. Suddenly JDG are in trouble. Weiwei doesn't have his flash, but he's gonna force the flash out of Zoom anyway. Nice play so far from V5.
Yeah, they're trying to get aggressive. They're trying to make sure that they're the ones getting onto the good footing in this game. And so far, Mole has done an excellent job of doing just that. We'll lose some of these creeps to that mid lane wave, though, because he did TP top. Yagao just trying to play keep away here and make sure that he can stop Mole from getting in. But this stun, fantastic from Mole. And a bit of disrespect from Yagao, not realizing, hey, look, there's just enough mana in the tank for him to set that play up.
Beautiful stuff here from the mid laner in Mole, and it's important as well because we talked about this matchup in game number 1. If Echo can get ahead, it's exceptionally difficult for Syndra, but the same goes the other way around.
Exactly, and with Mole now firmly in control of this mid lane, it becomes a lot easier for V5 to turn towards these dragons, start setting up for objectives, and that is why it's so strong now for V5 that you can have Weiwei go through, start clearing out this bottom side, move over towards this dragon, try and use the pressure that Mole is now creating in the mid lane. And you can see Kanavi, he's trying to turn that around, because right now, he's trying to make sure that he's sitting here, working with Yagao, even to a certain extent Lumao right now as well.
Lumao moving to the mid lane once again. I love watching Lumao, man. He's such a creative support player. Mole gonna get stunned up here as they're trying to finish off the all-in ignite. Is ticking away, and Lumao grabs the kill.
And that's what we wanted to see from Lumao, getting out of this lane, getting this impact known nice and early, gets that turnaround kill for Yagao. Does go the way of the support, which does kind of suck, but look at the amount of CS, experience, and gold that's being lost to this tower now for Mole.
Lumao gonna start off the Scuttle Crab as well for Kanavi. And you know, we've seen this Pantheon support a little bit, not even just here. And it's been to mixed success. And sometimes we've been pretty unimpressed by it. But Lumao clearly has this game plan under wraps.
And we've seen it from his opponent here. We've seen PP God play this, and he wasn't able to get out and get aggressive in those early stages. And then he just started to fall off super hard, super aggressively. Lumao, though, is not willing to let that happen. He's the one making these plays happen, and successfully, which means he's actually keeping up when it comes to those levels, and will hit that level 6 point and can make this play just ramp up even more so.
So let's talk win conditions then, because we've got pretty different compositions, especially with this Pantheon coming on in. Although Weiwei, I don't think he's going to let us have a conversation right here, Dagda. He wants to go for a tower dive. He's level 6 on the Volibear, which means he can be that Stormbringer. He can get under this tower, disable that objective. Kanavi's just realized something's up because the Krugs aren't there. Wei gonna sprint out of the play because Yagao is heading him off as well. This is gonna turn into a 3v2 at this rate. Is BuBu gonna be hammered away on by Yagao to start this playoff. Kanavi comes in as well and is brought straight into the Death Dome. That's not a 1v1 that Kanavi can win. Might have to use his kick, but actually just dodging away from the hammer blows. Mole's arrived as well. Stun across the whole team. Look at that out of Mole. It's going to be traded. 1-for-1. No, BuBu survives somehow. Zoom barely gets out with his life. And now Yagao has to chrono break back, but he's in a 2 versus 1. He gets a stun, but phase dive onto the minions somehow. It's a 1-for-1.
And they can't get the slow, they can't get the kill. There's the stun.
Okay, Weiwei's not interested.
No, they can't manage it. Yagao manages to outplay that so well. So Kanavi does fall, but also BuBu goes down. So it's a 1-for-1 trade. And when all said and done, getting some of this gold back onto Yagao, being able to answer for these early plays of V5 is a big win for JDG.
JDG managing to answer once again. This time, though, they're not getting advantages out of these early plays like they did in game number 1.
But the thing is, this is what we were trying to bring up before that shenanigans happened up there, is that JDG, they're the ones that are looking to scale. They're the ones that have this Camille that's going to pop off in a side lane when she gets to those 3 to 4 items. Same with Yagao, who can have control in the side lane when he gets to his item break points, where he's got the likes of Hextech Protocol, where he's got those Lich Banes, where he's picked up more items. So when we look towards who needs to make plays happen early, it is V5 that have that burden to get this gold lead rolling. Start working with Sam D and PP God, especially towards these dragons that we still haven't seen one taken by 8.5 minutes.
Yep, Dragon not been taken just yet, and now Herald is on the map as well. So if someone does commit to that Dragon, it's very likely that we just have a trade of objectives. But then again, with these two teams, Dagda, it's always possible that we do just see a big old brawl, because based on the gameplay so far in this series, nobody's letting their opponent away with anything.
But we have seen both, well, at least JDG certainly put some pressure towards those objectives. Kanavi, while all this brawling, this fighting was going on, Kanavi was still picking up early dragons, was still getting Rift Heralds, was still making sure that that ticking time bomb that is that Dragon Soul is available for JDG. This time around, though, we're not seeing that. Instead, Lumeo is trying to make sure that he can use this Pantheon, get these roaming plays happen, and then try and use the pressure from that Pantheon ultimate to make picks and then turn into objectives.
So we are going to see Loken in this bottom lane. That first turret plate does go down, but there was no one to collect the gold, so it's just going to be given over to the minions. They get themselves a Brucey little bonus for Christmas. Very nicely done from them. I'm sure it's Christmas somewhere. I know it's August, but you know, you got to hope, haven't you, Dagda? BuBu going to pull Zoom into the Death Realm. I don't know if he wins that 1v1, though. This is a Camille we're talking about right here. It's pretty even so far. But Zoom's going to look to dodge everything. Dawning Shadow across the team. Flashes on out, but he gets taken down. Lumao's arrived a little too late to the play. He will be slowed. PP got here as well. Tempered Fate available if they need to disable the tower. Doesn't look like they're going to need to right now, though. Great Scatter the Weak stops Yagao getting into the play, and immediately Yagao just bursts down, jump over the wall. Tempered Fate goes wide, but it's another kill for V5.
Again, V5 are ramping up the pressure here, though. They're the ones that get the pick, and they get to turn this in towards the Rift Herald. And it's beautiful from V5 in being able to get so many plays out from JDG, so many cooldowns, like that ultimate from Lumeo. That is critical for them in trying to make this Pantheon pick work early.
Army wants to contest for this one. I'm not sure that was a good idea, though. Will get himself out with a war jump. In they go. Lumao flashes to make the play. Teleport being channeled as well by Yagao. Can they make it into anything, though? Dragon is available right now. Maybe that's the play for JDG.
It looks like they're actually just going to try and turn this into turret plates on the top side. You have a wave that's pushing in. You have Loken and Lumeo moving up there as well. So Dragon plus some plates. Not the end of the world, at least we'll get some of that gold back in their favor that has been lost to V5.
That's going to be the most important thing. You got to get at least 2 plates for that to be worthwhile when we're talking about that Herald being taken. But on top of that, there was a couple of kills taken for the side of V5. So when it comes to that gold lead, they are slowly but surely starting to build it up for themselves.
I do want to look back at this Dragon, though, because the reason I was trying to point it out was that the fact it's been taken so late means that now our Dragon Soul play is pushed far into the future.
What?
Is there even a
There's no wall!
Okay, fair enough. But Zoom, you got to run, buddy.
Yeah, Weiwei gonna get in onto Zoom here. I don't think they can turn that into anything. What is going on right now? Where are these walls that PP God is hitting?
Look, I want to go back to this Dragon Point, though, because now that Dragon Soul is going to be so much further down the line, because our first Dragon was taken at 10 minutes, well, then you don't have to worry about fighting for some of these earlier ones, especially on JDG side, because you're the one with that first Dragon. You've now got 3 dragons that can go the way of V5 before you actually have to worry about it. So 15 minutes into the future, or well, 20 minutes realistically by the time you end up fighting for them. So you're now looking at that 30-minute mark by the time that JDG have to fight, which is when they should have Zoom at a really strong point. Yagao should have a bunch of items, and even Loken will have picked up a bunch of souls for himself.
Yeah, he'll grab a bunch of souls. He'll also start to get those items online. As you can see, already gone for that Mana Moon, so that'll be stacked well and truly by the time we get to any kind of Dragon Soul shenanigans. And you'd expect him to go with things like the Black Cleaver in this build as well. On the other side, though, Sam D on this Ashe. He's got himself that Cutlass. He'll be heading towards the Blade of the Rune King. Once he does get to 2-3 items, when they can force fights with the Crystalline Arrow, you'd expect that is when V5 are going to be able to force some of these issues.
The thing is, though, that because of all these early movements in the game, Mole has found himself in a CS deficit, so he's a little bit slowed down. Sam D, not quite in the same position. He's okay. He's steadily working up towards that Blade of the Rune King. But the key carries for V5 are actually not the ones that are ahead in the GOAT.
Well, we mentioned that Rift Herald that was already taken with a Demolish coming in as well. They're going to be able to grab at least a couple of plates here in the mid lane. I thought they were going to be able to commit a little bit harder, but good job by Yagao and Kanavi to defend this tower. It's going to be 3 plates taken in the end. Maybe a 4th, but Lumao threatening off to the side means that V5 have to back away from the play.
V5 is not trying to force that tower to be taken. They just want to make sure they get the turret plates off of the Rift Herald. So they do split it between multiple members, so it's not like it's going to be one person very far accelerated, but at least they are still getting some of these turret plates back in the fight.
So let's kind of revisit something we started the day off talking about here, Dagda, and that was the not win condition in terms of the compositions here, but the general win condition for V5. It's been playing through the bottom lane, and it's when they're ahead at 15, they've got an 85% win rate. At what point do we see them really put their foot down? Are they able to just brute force some kind of win here? Because they do have themselves a small gold lead. Hang on, Mole. In a 1v1. He's going to be able to get away. They do have themselves a small gold lead as we head towards the 15-minute mark.
Well, the best way I would have said for them to try and force these plays was through dragons, is through objectives. But because that dragon wasn't taken by V5, well, now JDG don't have to try and fight at these early dragons. Same when it comes towards these Rift Herald plays. You're actually okay as JDG is just conceding some of these towers and making sure that you at least slow the game down. You're not giving a bunch of gold over to V5. So V5 need to make plays like this, where they're trying to force dives, they're trying to push out these waves and use the small gold lead that they have to go for dives, get turrets, and accelerate the game back.
So less about the neutrals, much more about just trying to find that standing gold. Great kick through, but it's actually Yagao not really able to follow up too much. Chrono Break to dodge damage out of the Syndra. Wei now suddenly caught, but there's a great tempered fate from the PP God himself. Now they turn it around onto Lu Mao. The PP Father, Son, and Holy Spirit saving the day, but suddenly it's turned around once again. Yagao and Kanavi managed to answer with a kill onto Wei.
Too far forward. Wei just tried to, well, bounce off of the high, bounce off of what PP God had just created, but unfortunately for him, goes underneath the tower, the stun turns around, and it means that it's again a 1-for-1 trade, and oh, it's not quite getting over the line here for V5. They're trying to make these picks happen, but JDG are answering really well.
So let's take another look at what on earth happened here. Because it was a great, it looked really nice from Kanavi at very least.
There's no follow-up here from Yagao. I mean, what do you try and do here? You're the one that's actually running away. You've now had the Syndra kicked into you who could potentially turn for a bunch of burst damage. Yagao has to piece out using his ultimate, and there, that's the mistake. Wei, you've already been ignited. You know there's a heap of burst damage can come through from an Echo and Kanavi as well when you're on low health. Tower in the mid lane, though, trying to go down.
Yeah, BB should be able to finish this one off. Pulling them in! Look at Mole's damage! That is absurd! Now into the Death Throne they go. Yagao just going to be trying to hide underneath this tower. BB realizes he can't go for the solo dive.
I think Yagao is happy with that. It's like, get me away from the bad lady. Because that damage from Mole, now having that Luden's Echo completed, you can see that burst damage has come through. He's 700 gold of anyone else in this game, and that is where that damage is coming from.
That was insane out of Mole, and this is what we've been talking about. Mole when you compare this guy from spring to summer, it is a night and day difference. Mole is the only remaining member from that spring roster that could not get a single series win the entire split. But he is a whole different man in summer. He's looking like a monster, especially on the Syndra.
So Sam D is positioned in this bottom lane. This is why V5 have to back away. You can have the TP from Yagao come in to force this fight. So as Loken starts to join in, now we can see JDG taking a step back, but again, they're happy to go for these trades. If they are just forcing V5 back, great, Yagao can get this bot lane turret. We've already taken that top lane structure with Zoom, and they're the two towers that JDG want to take down because they're playing split push. They're the two most important towers, and they can use this side lane pressure to collapse on towards mid and try and force that next tower down for themselves as well.
So now correct call here from V5 to basically say, look, if you're going to try and split push, we're going to force the issue and try and grab this objective for themselves. Weiwei the one to pick up the Herald in the end, so correct answer here from V5. The problem is, this early in the game, trading a tower for the Rift Herald, not really going to be as effective as the threat onto Baron later.
Exactly, and the Rift Herald right now really just means a tower, right? Because we've got all those plates that are gone down. You will get a tower, but you've already lost one. JDG are already up one of those structures, so realistically it's just getting that goal back for V5. It's not accelerating the goal for V5, which is the difference here. JDG are waiting for Zoom, who's already got that Triforce completed. He'll be working up towards that Ravenous Hydra. Yagao is working towards that Lich Bane now as well, and then that's when JDG are going to become very strong.
So JDG, they're chilling right now. They're quite happy to just play this one slow. You can see Loken, we talked about his items earlier. He's on the cusp of grabbing himself that black cleaver, and you'd expect the Muramana to finish leveling up at about a similar time, usually around the 20 to 22 minute mark. And up on the top side as well, Zoom, he's already got his Triforce, he's got himself the Tiamat, so that wave push is available. Once that Lich Bane is finished for Yagao, they're going to be massive. And now they're trying to make a play on the bottom side of the map. Herald going to be dropped elsewhere as BuBu. Obviously, he has the Death Realm available, and I think JDG realized they can't force anything. This could be two towers in the top side if V5 want to commit.
Kanavi trying to trade up again, making a play on the bottom side. BuBu does a good job to get away from that play. He's a Mordekaiser. He's going to be really good at getting away from it. So 2 towers now for V5 off this Rift Herald, and they want to make sure they get one last crash on this bottom side, but may not be able to do so.
Yeah, that ain't happening. Yagao's just going to be able to play that one away in the end. As Mole going to try and finish off this midi wave, realizes he can't overstay for this one because you see Lu Mao on that part of the minimap trying to move over.
A lot of this game is going to be on Volvo. He's the one that's fed on V5, and we've seen him in previous series step up as the carry for Victory 5. On the Syndra as well, we know he is capable of making these plays happen, and we need to see it here again, because if JDG are given the opportunity to continue scaling, they're just going to run away with this. V5 with Weiwei and Mole need to be able to initiate these fights, particularly towards the likes of this next Ocean Dragon that's coming up, towards Baron, which is about to spawn, and forcing JDG into these uncomfortable positions where they're opting into 5v5s that they don't want to go to.
I'm curious what Yagao is going to look like in the later stages of this game as well, because this time around, he's not going to have a million Cloud Salts, so he's not going to be able to ult every 15 seconds like he could in game number 1. So my question is, once he does finish this Lich Bane, once he gets towards things like Azonia's as well, how much impact is Yagao going to be able to have? Because if Mole is forced to ult onto this Echo every fight, you know for a fact that JDG has the advantage.
The thing is, though, you have quite a lot of CC coming in on V5. So Yagao has to be very careful about how he enters into these fights, because between the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, stuns from Weiwei, and that CC from Mole as well, if you go in, you've got to be damn sure that none of that is up and available, because you can get CC'd and burst out, no problems, no issues whatsoever on V5 side. So this is why I expect JDG will just stick with what the game plan has been right now, which is either having Zoom and Yagao either are on opposite lanes, or they could even, if they really want to, when Baron comes up onto the cards, opt for like a 0-3-2 where Zoom and Yagao try to push in through this bottom lane and get a few more structures for themselves.
So Dragon up in 20 seconds here. We'll see if JDG are going to be able to actually contest, because let's bear in mind the win conditions that we've set up here. JDGs are not about team fighting right now. They're about trying to separate and split up the map. Yagao in a 1v1 against BuBu at this point in the game. They're both just going to be fine. Yagao actually using a chrono break into the enemy team. I don't know if that was the play, my friend. Yagao now back into this death realm. He's going to be forced into the 1v1 and will be finished off as the rest of the fight is really kicking off. Lumao getting the stun on the backline, but he answers with his own life. Kanavi's going to fall. It's all gone wrong, but Yagao somehow survived. Hextech ultimatum. Zonya's out of from Bubu, who just about gets away, but a tactical sweep finishes it off. Now to Mole, as it's all on Zoom's shoulders. He's the last bastion for JDG, as Loken flees for his life. 1v1 with Sam D, but it's a triple kill for the Ash. And Zoom suddenly finds himself alone in the world. Stun comes through from Mole, and yet another fight for V5, yet another advantage.
Victory 5, pick up the team fight victory. Almost clean with only Bubu falling, but this is what we said. V5 thrive in these 5 versus 5s. JDG want to avoid them at all costs, and it's going to be V5 who force JDG into these scraps, and now they can get the dragon with all that extra gold going into their back pockets.
All we have talked about all game is that JDG don't want to go for these 5v5s. They want to scale up. What? Mole? What? I guess he was recalling in the brush. I think that's the only explanation, right? Kanavi finds a bonus. There you go. Nice one. He got a shutdown as well.
That's a pretty sizable bonus. I mean, it's onto Elise in, though, so it's not going to massively matter. But either way, I want to go back to your point of, look, V5 have now got this massive cash injection into them. You're looking at Infinity Edge being worked on for Sam D. Mole had gone for the Spellbinder, so looking towards more of this mid-game focus build. But he's still going to be incredibly strong when he does pop that Spellbinder and looking to burst people out. And see in the bottom left corner, the replay of, recall in the bush, caught by Mole.
And just gets the one last auto attack down. So nicely done there by Kanavi. But as you rightly say, when we look at the items, it's very much in favor of V5 now. And it's starting to get to a point where JDG, if they do fall behind, it's going to be very difficult to force a split push strategy.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted to point out here, was that these split push strategies rely a lot on tempo, especially when you've got Lumao on this Pantheon. They wanted this Pantheon to try and join in with Zoom, join in with Yagao, as they're going for these 1-3-1 splits, or whatever way they wanted to try and work it out. Now that they're falling behind and V5 are able to push out waves, get these lanes back in control, if you have Lumao try and join in on either of these side lanes, you can have V5 just force a play through that mid lane, or you can even have them TP in and try and fight as well. So this is where it gets a little bit dicey for JDG. But as I say that, Kanavi will be spotted out on this bottom side, but here's the force!
Why are you trying to make the plays onto the Mordekaiser? That's not where you need to be right now, because V5, this is the team that when they get a lead, they're gonna win the game.
And we just said, hey, they're going to be able to force these plays. If you try and make some sort of aggressive play on these side lanes, you've got PP God on this Baron. The Tempered Fate sets up all of that. Now they get Baron, and Bubu's still defending these structures.
Yeah, I mean, Zoom's trying his best to get some kind of tier 2 in the bottom side, but that's not going to make a difference. Kanavi now, I mean, there's not even a way to make a Miracle Steal. He's going to be caught out. Magical Journey as well. Unleashed Power comes through as Mole. He's got a stopwatch, so he's going to be fine from the burst out of Kanavi. Dragon Rage available. So he's slowed. He should be able to get out with his life at very least. But hey, Baron got taken in trade for a tier 2. That ain't worth it, JDG.
The tier 2 at least does allow some pressure from Zoom on towards inhibitors, but Yagao trying to pick off people. Sam D needs to be careful.
Good effort. I can appreciate that he did something. That's good, but wasn't enough. Unfortunate. But hey, Dagda, when we're talking about the win rates here for V5, when we're talking about how good they are at snowballing and how good they are from winning when they've got a lead, we could be looking at 3 games.
And look at this. The second you see Kanavi on that bottom side with Bubu, V5 collapse. And this is what we were saying just as we are literally talking about it, was V5's ability to start off these engagements, because you've got the Tempered Fate, is super strong. And if you overcommit with men on a side lane from JDG, you will be punished from V5. And as you're rightly pointing out, Munch, when you're looking at like an 85% win rate from V5 when they're ahead, it's through plays like this, through smart play is how they will beat JDG, and that's what they're doing right now.
And when we look at the items as well, on the side of JDG, it's not that different from the last time that we looked. On the other side of the board, Mole has 3 full items on top of his boots. Now with the Baron as well, V5 can just brute force this one. They're happy to 4-1. They're happy to 5v5. JDG, they don't really have an avenue to force any kind of advantage.
We said they need time. They need to get towards those 3 items. We're not even 4 items, but we're not at that point. And even now, because V5 are so far accelerated, you need even more before you can try and deal with Victory 5 right now. Even Weiwei keeping pressure on this bottom lane. Zoom can't control this wave anymore, and he'll be forced to back away. Or fear being dived by Victory 5, just leaning over towards this bottom side.
And they're going to take that bottom tier 2. In the meantime, they also take an inhibitor in the mid lane. So at least good respect here from JDG saying, look, we cannot fight for this. We cannot defend this inhib right now. Still 50 seconds on the Baron buff. V5 might be able to grab themselves too.
They're just going to try and force this last push, and then they will turn back towards that dragon that's about to spawn. JDG getting antsy though as their bottom lane turret goes down.
Oh, hang on. Loken pulled into the Death Realm. Senna doesn't win that 1v1. Now the rest of the skirmish kicks off as the arrow goes in, and see you later, Zoom. This game might just be over, Dagda, as Samdi is free firing onto Lumao. He's blocking a lot of damage, but it's just not enough. Yagao gets stunned by the Scat of the Week, but there's no follow-up from the rest of the team. 2 inhibs fall. Yagao's on the back line, but he's completely alone in the world. He's going to try and find a play onto Samdi. Great flash on the Ashe. He gets the slow and he wants to chase. He's not going to be able to get the 1v1. It looked good, though. I'll give you that one, Samdi. We're going to game 3, Dagda. JDG have been outdone.
And I could not be happier about a game number 3. V5 in the early stages of the game are able to set themselves up. They're able to fight back against JDG, find those 5v5s that they want, and knock JDG off of that pedestal.
And we said as soon as you give V5 an advantage, they are going to run away with the game. They got themselves an advantage, won the game like 5 to 10 minutes later. They will find the picks, they will find the Baron, and once they get that Baron, it's like IG, honestly. That's the most similar team. The second they get that Baron, they're going to close the game.
And it's beautiful to watch. I think that's why we've all been so hyped about Victory 5, is their ability, when they get a lead, to snowball that so incredibly quickly and not really give them any opportunities or even a looking at an advantage to be taken back by the enemy side. So coming into this, I was kind of like, okay, cool. Victory 5, we've got this mid-game composition. You're spiking off of 1 to 2 items. How do we try and accelerate this? And it looked a little bit dodgy at points, but definitely once we got that bottom lane fight where you tried to get the pick coming through from JDG, Kanavi playing a little bit too heavily towards trying to kill BuBu on this Mordekaiser, which you're not going to be able to do easily. And from that one fight in the bottom lane, that was the catalyst. That was that mid-game fight that they needed to break this game open and break open JDG's.
And the plays onto the Mordekaiser that you're talking about are the really crazy thing about this game to me, because what have we been talking about all day long about JDG? They're the smartest team in the league. They're these guys that are going to read you like a book and play accordingly. Trying to 2v1 Mordekaiser doesn't work. He just 1v1s you and then 1v1s the other guy. Like, that's not how this game works. And Kanavi, time and time again, trying to make that play happen. V5, they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe their luck.
And it felt like in a lot of situations, Kanavi was just not on the page for this entire game. Weiwei had control from the jungle in the get-go. You'd see that he was able to get those advantages in the mid lane, even though we had those early plays through Lumao. And then from that point, Kanavi was like, right, I have to make something happen. I have to have some impact in this game, but just chose the wrong place to do so.
Really difficult game here for the side of JDG, and an uncharacteristic loss as well, because we saw them going for this 5v5 that you wouldn't expect them to go for around the track.